She was born in the year, and understand that I'm 65, my mother, and then back to my grandmother. And this is fascinating to me to think about this. She was born in the year 1879. That's a long time ago if you think about it. I always like to tie my dates in my own mind, and I think it helps other people, to other maybe dates in history. Our American Civil War, the war between the states, in the South, our war for independence, it didn't work out so good, started in 1860. It went on for 5 terrible years. More Americans were killed in our own Civil War than were killed in any war since. And that's Americans fighting Americans killed a lot of Americans. Anyway, it ended in 1865. She was born in 1879, so she was born only 14 years. Think back in your own life, 14 years ago, unless you're 7 years old, but think back in your own life 14 years ago, how recent that was. And there she came along in the South, in Georgia, after the Civil War. Really, I can't remember when Reconstruction in the South ended, but during that terrible period after the Civil War, things were not good in the South during Reconstruction. So that's when she appeared on Earth in 1879. My grandfather, her husband, named Jefferson Jones, which he married, was born 4 years prior to that, 5 years prior to that, in 1874. So he was only, 9 years, I think, after the Civil War when he was born. So that's way back. And that is important when you try to understand maybe things I tell you, that what she was like and why she was like she was, because she was in that generation. In 1879, and I kind of looked this up, I like to tie it back to real things too. The year she was born was a year in France that they started building the Eiffel Tower. You think the Eiffel Tower's always been standing there in Paris, but they started putting up that wonderful steel structure the same year my grandmother was born here in the United States. But some places in the U.S. we weren't exactly building architectural wonders. In our West at that time, we were still fighting Indians, native Indians. There were still Indian wars going on. And this was the time of the Wild West when, people like Bat Masterson and Billy the Kid and Wyatt Earp and all those cowboys that you've seen in the movies and on TV, that was their time. So she was born back in cowboy days. Now cowboy days had passed here in the South and the West had moved west. But that's the time frame she was born in. That's important to know. So she started out as a baby in 1879. Don't have a whole lot about her history up until the time she married and my mother and her brothers and sisters were born. Just don't know, other than they remained around the Powder Springs area of Georgia. But here's something I found out that is interesting to me, and I think maybe why the viewer found interest. And didn't know this the past few years. We started doing some genealogy research back in the parents on both sides of my family. And we found on both sides of the family, we have a great amount of Native American Cherokee Indian blood in the family. And the best we can find in documentation is my grandmother on my mother's side was 1/4 Cherokee Indian. And there's some record that says that her ancestor that was Cherokee was a chief in the Cherokee Nation. I think he said his name was Chief Gray Eagle. Now that has a bearing too, and maybe why she was like she was, the belief she had, the things she wanted to do and enjoyed and whatever. So that kind of sets the scene. Born at that time with Indian, Native American ancestry, blood, and we're going to have to jump way forward up into the 1900s to continue the story. But that's the way it started.